Welcome to the Women Get Funded show, where we are dedicated to empowering women founders to shatter barriers and achieve exponential growth and funding for their business. Join us on this inspiring journey as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises. With only 2% of venture funding going to women-led businesses and a mere 3% of women-led companies crossing the $1 million threshold, these startling statistics highlight the need for change. I am Kofo Selman, 5-time founder, impact investor, creator of the Force for Good business system, and your host on this transformative journey. In each episode, you'll meet a trailblazing woman leader. You will meet venture capitalists, CEOs, successful founders, and experts in scaling business growth. Our purpose is clear. We are here to open doors and provide women founders with invaluable access to advisors, investors, and visionary leaders who share our commitment to creating a better world through women-led business at #WomenGetFunded. We see a future where tomorrow's Amazons, Mercks, Microsofts, and Home Depots are born right here, led by women. They represent the future face of business, and we're here to make it happen. I believe that women-led business is the most powerful, transformative force of our time. Together, we make the world better through business. Are you in? Welcome to the Women Get Funded show. We are dedicated to empowering women founders to shatter barriers of growth and funding for their businesses. Thank you for joining us today as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises. So today we have a very special guest for us all. Today we have Christie Lagally, founder and CEO of Rebellyous Foods. She's a former aerospace engineer turned trailblazer in the plant-based food industry. Her expertise is in mechanical engineering, honed at the University of British Columbia and UC Santa Barbara, laid the groundwork for her innovative approach to food production. Under her leadership, Rebellyous Foods, established in 2017 and a standout in the Y Combinator portfolio, recently secured $9.5 million equity round to enhance its groundbreaking manufacturing technology. This funding aims to scale the production of affordable plant-based meat to achieve price parity with traditional meat products. Also, an unreasonable fellow. So check that out, unreasonable fellow. Christie collaborates with global entrepreneurs to tackle pressing challenges through profitable solutions, a force for good for sure. Her achievements, including steering Rebellyous Foods into over 1,000 retail outlets and 100 school districts, earn her accolades such as Vegconomics Top Female Founder and Inc. Magazine's Intriguing Women Entrepreneurs of 2024. So Christie's commitment to sustainable food solutions and her impactful advocacy make her a leading voice in the industry. Thank you for joining us today to hear more about Christie's visionary work and future ambitions. So welcome, Christie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I just am so honored you are such the, to me, the epitome of a entrepreneur that is out to create good in the world. And you're doing it with vision and just insight to grow and thrive. And you're doing all the things. It's amazing. So
Thank you.
I like to start with this first question is, What's a book that you have loved, written by a woman that significantly influenced your life?
Yeah, I would say both a book and overall her activism was Grace Lee Boggs. She was a Chinese American activist who lived to be 100 years old. And she was a huge leader in the civil rights movement and leader in the women's movement, where she really was working towards making sure that all of us understood our role in activism. And
Mhm.
she wrote the book, The Next American Revolution, Sustainable Activism for the 21st Century. I highly recommend it. It really does talk about why we, as a democracy, but also as global citizens, are responsible for activism. And so she's also just really an amazing philosopher, um, who really understood that the human condition evolved through activism, and that, the static nature of so many oppressive characteristics of society
Mm.
was largely due to the acceptance of them. And if you have to do something different, you literally have to do something different. So I highly recommend that book due to the fact that it's really a call to ourselves,
Mm.
to make activism a part of our lives, whatever form that is most passionate for you.
I love that. And it's so clear that that's what you have chosen to do with your life,
Thank
right?
you.
And to create a business that models what can be possible and what your vision is of what's possible. And I just have to say, everybody, you have to listening, you have to go and check out Rebellious Foods website, because it is so what I love about it is how honest and true and just true to who you are as a brand, as a team, as a message. You're very unique.
Thank you. I
Right? I
appreciate
really
that. Yeah.
do, and I do believe that that's what makes the biggest difference in the world, is when we have authentic voices, which yours is. So tell us about your extraordinary journey and what led you to found this company.
Yeah, sure. So Rebellious Foods is actually our brand name, and actually started the company as Seattle Food Tech in 2017. I started it with the idea that we had to find a way to make plant-based meat faster, better, and cheaper in order to serve a market that, um, is not able to access climate-friendly foods. So back in 2017, we were in the early-ish but heydays of the plant-based meat boom, so to speak.
Mhm.
And where I saw value in making a difference was trying to tackle the issue of price parity.
Yeah.
And there were lots of people interested in this area back then, and still are today, even more so, I would say.
Mhm.
But the people that I had met were through the Humane Society of the United States. I was volunteering for them because I care about animals, I care about the environment, I care about people. And as a result, I had volunteered to work on things like Meatless Mondays and advocacy at the federal and state level for laws. And I met Christy Middleton, who actually now works for Rebellious as our vice president of business development, and Josh Balk, who ran the farm animal protection team at the Humane Society of the United States. And they kept saying somebody has to start a plant-based chicken company or chicken nugget company that is high quality but reaches price parity with animal meat. And it turns out that that particular issue persists even today for the large portion of the plant-based meat industry. And I was looking at this issue and kind of over time realized that my background in manufacturing technology at Boeing Commercial Airplane had a lot of relevance on why plant-based meat costs too much and there isn't enough of it. And it really was the way that we make it.
Mm.
So plant-based meat just is right now is made mostly in meat processing facilities, attempting to use meat processing equipment to do plant-based meat, to make plant-based meat. And those are simply the wrong tools for the job. So I kind of went back to first principles and said, what about starting a company that actually makes the right tools for the job, puts them into operation, and tackles this issue of, low cost chicken products, plant based chicken products for the public school system, for institutions, hospitals, et cetera. So that's what I did. And I would say shortly after that, we were a part of a Y Combinator. We launched out in Y Combinator. And then I went back to Christy Middleton and I said, join us. In 2019, she joined us as our vice president of business development. And the sky's been the limit for her because we have since actually grown, even since my introduction, to 242 school districts nationwide. We sell at or near price parity for most customers, and we're just about to deploy that technology that we dreamed of 6 years ago to actually make plant-based meat at high margin, a sustainable margin, so that we could potentially even bring down the price more, although price parity was obviously the target. So, yeah, so we're very, it's been obviously 6.5, 7 year, almost 7 years for me come September. And in doing all of that work over the years, obviously we've learned a tremendous amount and been
Mhm.
through a global pandemic that shut down all of our schools. So that kind of sucked for a while. But
Yeah.
we've also very much learned how to navigate this industry and, really understand what customers want from plant-based meat. And that's why we hyper focus on high quality, automated production of plant-based meat so that we can hit price parity with restaurant quality products and serve those directly to the most cost sensitive customers. So, we sell a small amount of retail, but mostly we serve the USDA National School Lunch Program,
Mhm.
plus hospitals across the nation, prisons, entertainment venues, places like that. But we believe that's where, people are most price sensitive. That's why huge volumes of meat are sold there. Um, Hitting that price parity and serving those customers is our first and foremost goal.
I just love that. And it's so it's certainly altruistic and
Thank you.
it's impactful, but it's also really good business sense because you're
Thank you.
hitting a market, right? You're hitting a market. You're positioned to hit a market that needs it and you're expanding into a market, right? You're not just going and having another, plant-based product that sells into Whole Foods at a much higher price point. You're creating a whole new market,
Mhm.
you
Thank
know?
you. Yeah, we're very excited about that because if you think about it, our muse, our inspiration for doing this is the meat industry itself. Meat has been made to be cheap and readily available since the onslaught of industrial processing in the 1950s and 60s, and nothing like that existed for climate-friendly foods. So essentially, we're industrializing the production of plant-based meat in order to replace that which is causing harm, which is large scale meat production. So by making that a truly replaceable product, meaning it tastes as good, it performs as good, and it's the same price, then you can actually start to move the needle on the amount of meat we need to replace, which,
Yeah.
according to climate scientists, is close to 80% of current volumes by 2030 or 2040. And right now in the world, we produce over 771 billion pounds of animal meat. So we have a long way to go.
So, one of my strong beliefs is that business is the most powerful, innovative force in the world.
Yeah.
And it's with solutions like yours that things like, our CO2 challenges can be resolved.
Mhm.
It's feeding our children, right?
Yes.
It's feeding our kids and people in hospitals and so forth, and you're visiting your loved ones or you're in the hospital. I just think it's extraordinary. So just so everybody's listening who understands, so tell us what your products are.
Yeah, so we are a technology developer and we use that technology to make our products. So we don't
Yes.
necessarily directly sell technology, but we make products. So we make plant-based chicken nuggets, tenders, and patties for the National School Lunch Program. These are child nutrition approved products that allow us to meet the nutritional requirements of kids who, in some cases are actually participating in anti-poverty programs through their school districts. So it's really important that we make sure they're a nutritious product, they're low in sodium, low in saturated fat. Great thing about plant-based is also has no cholesterol, so it's even better for you than a chicken nugget that would normally be used in one of those anti-poverty programs. On top of that, we also sell a different line of products that are also chicken nuggets, tenders, and patties. They're really formulated for adults, a little bit spicier, a little bit pepperier. And we sell those to hospitals, universities, corporate cafeterias, prisons,
Mhm.
wherever those are preferred. So there's two kind of opposite end of the spectrum product lines, the nuggets,
Mhm.
tenders, and patties for schools, and then product line of nuggets, tenders, and patties for adults, basically.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Okay, so what I also just everybody listening, sometimes as entrepreneurs when we're getting started or when we're stuck, we have this long set of different things we sell. I wanna just, like, home in on how powerful your product line is, in that
You.
it's very clear and it's very focused, and your manufacturing product process is in fact at the heart of what you do. It's your area of greatness, right? Um, but just notice for everybody listening, you don't have to have 1,000 things you're selling. You just need to know who your customer is, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and what it is that you offer. So I always like to talk about purpose, customer, and growth strategy. So I'd love to take one of the things I love about your website and about what I've learned so far about you and your business is that purpose, right? And vision and values are really important to you. It says on your website, we're a team of animal loving engineers on a mission to create the perfect plant based nugget. Can you say more about that?
Well, so that's a very, very simple way of describing the work that we do. We have a whole team of engineers that have worked, even past employee engineers who have worked very hard to develop a process that we can essentially remove the extraneous costs from processing and making plant-based meat. Um, And so this is a very simple and kind of straightforward way of saying, we're trying to figure this out so that we can bring you more climate friendly foods. And, we love animals. We're motivated by that. We're motivated by the planet. We're motivated by bringing kids healthier food to our school lunch program. But that was the simplest way to
I
slap it on a website is animal loving engineers to create the perfect plant based nugget. So,
I
um,
just love it. It's so well, and I imagine too, like this isn't something you landed on your first take. You probably had to you probably had to iterate a few times to find that language.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, what we do is actually very complex. And I think,
Yes.
what the public needs to know
Yes.
versus what maybe you need to know if you're an investor is very different. The nitty gritty stuff behind the scenes can be actually pretty hard even for investors to really wrap their head around because manufacturing technology is kind of a afterthought in a lot of industries.
Mhm.
You kind of automate things after you've already made it work otherwise. But in the case of plant based meat, it's a prerequisite to success.
Yeah.
And that is not always the case. You automate things that people don't. A mentor once told me this: if you automate things that people don't do well or don't do safely, um, there's some argument to say that as long as we make a small amount of plant-based meat, we can do it well, and as long as we make a small amount of plant-based meat, we can do it safely. Those None of those things exist until you have a big volume,
Right.
of product that you need to make, and when that happens, you quickly turn into the territory of not being able to do it well or not being able to do it safely. But the problem is we kept trying the market was stymied by the fact that we were um, had plant-based meat cost too much because, of course, doing everything in an artesian fashion costs too much. And so it was really hard to grow the plant-based meat market and has been, continues to be,
Mhm.
until you hit price parity with animal meat. And yet
Mhm.
that's the paradox, is that
Mhm.
you can't
Mhm.
get there. You can't do
Mhm.
the automation until you have the volume, and you need the volume in order to justify the automation. So what we basically said was, you know what? We're going to invest in the automation and show that it unlocks the volume and incrementally grow that way. And that seems to it was a guess. It was the theory of our company, but it seems to be proving out pretty accurately.
It's amazing. And I know, again, I would direct all of our listeners back to your website. You talk about your Mach 2 next gen meat machine, right? Like
Mhm.
it's your impact, it's your goal. And then you have a full, wonderful list of specific goals that you have around that, and some specific targets, right? Where maybe share a little bit about that, about your next gen Mach 2 next gen meat machine, and
Sure.
how those goals shape the vision and direction and choices of your company.
Sure. So, yeah, exactly. The Mach 2 production system is our new automated, fully continuous, and fully chilled production system that takes all of the labor and all of the risk basically out of making plant based meat dough at high volume and brings down the cost considerably while increasing the quality and also increasing the overall food safety, which we're also very proud of. So, making producing food in high volumes can sometimes come with a lot of different risks, worker safety risk, food safety risk, things like that. And by automating this production, we can bring those risks considerably down and sometimes fully eliminate them. So, the Mach 2 production system is the legacy of the Mach 1 and the Mach 1S, which were prototype systems that also worked on the problem of replacing the equipment that we use to make plant based meat. So, I mentioned earlier about how right now we make plant based meat in meat processing facilities using off the shelf meat processing equipment. And those are the wrong tools for the job.
Mhm.
If you can
Mhm.
imagine deconstructing a chicken and making a plant-based meat product are very, very different things. The fact that we're using the same tools is kind of silly. There are genuine reasons for it, but most of them depend on not making a lot of plant-based meat. So we designed this new system that we called the Mach 1. It tackled every area where there was a lot of labor happening, a lot of human interface, a lot of lifting and heavy measuring and things like that, a lot of mixing. And we essentially said, okay, if we want to do this in a continuous fashion, how do we do this? And we figured it out. We did a lot of trial and error. Some things we did not work. But after a while, we came up with the Mach 1. And the Mach 1 was the fully continuous system. And then we developed the Mach 1 into the Mach 1S, which was what we called the sanitary version, because the Mach 1 we actually built from parts we found in people's garages. So, and we bought things that were not standard and we put together control boxes that were loosely wired together. So then once we realized, okay, what was the right thing to do, then we built the Mach 1S, which was a prototype 200-pound an hour processing system that completely automated the production of the Mach 1. So we called it the Mach 1S. And then after the Mach 1S was operational, we're like, oh my God, this works great. We change a few things here or there, but overall, this works great. So, but how does it work when it's at, instead of 200 pounds an hour, what happens when it's at 5,000 pounds an hour or 2,000 pounds an hour? And so that's when we had to build the Mach 2. Now, the Mach 2, when you're at 2,000 pounds an hour, you're a commercial food processing facility. You need to be in a commercial food processing facility. So we spent a lot of time designing the Mach 1S into the Mach 2, and that's where we're at right now. We are actually delivering the Mach 2 at our new partner co-manufacturing facility. And that facility will be operating the Mach 2 probably later, well, in the summer and then later this year. So we're very excited about that because now we're not just imagining what could happen and prototyping, but we actually are putting it into commercial production. So the products that are going to be coming off that line later this year will actually be produced by in the automated, super safe, super isolated fashion. That eventually it'll all come off of that line, and which is pretty exciting. And that's where we can make the products at price parity with animal meat. And what you see is just undeniable quality because you're not over mixing or temperature
Oh,
isn't wrong or anything like that because it's accurately controlled at every step of the way.
it's wonderful. And just to see how, even to hear you talk about it and the way that you're passionate about it. And I think the other thing I hope everybody's just gathering here is just how you start with what you have. It
Mhm.
might be what's in your garage, right? It might be
Yes.
whatever you can pull together. As founders, we have to be scrappy and, put together whatever we can. And then over time, and we'll get to this, I'm going to ask you later about how you funded your business, but like, certain you can't afford everything out of the gate. And if you did, you'd be wasting your money because you don't know at the beginning what you really what you
Yeah.
want or what you're
Yep.
going to need. So tell us now about your customer. And, um, you sell to schools and food service. It's your
Yep.
primary target. You talked
Yep.
about how what I heard you say before too is that you were looking for markets that could not normally access plant-based foods. And so that was a big part of it. So talk to us about your customer and
Yeah.
how you describe your customer.
Yeah. So, I mean, our customers are those food service operators, whether those be in schools or hospitals or universities or entertainment parks, um, or even prisons or locations like that, where the volume is really, really high, but obviously quality can never be compromised.
Mhm.
And that price is the deciding factor between choosing animal based meat or versus plant based meat.
Mhm.
So everyone who we sell to is not eating plant-based meat because they, didn't want to eat an orange that day. They're eating plant-based meat because they're replacing animal-based meat at a large scale. So schools are a really good example. In the United States, the U.S. meat industry produces over 52 billion pounds of chicken.
Wow.
2.3 billion of that goes directly to our public school system in the form of chicken nuggets, tenders, and patties. So it's a huge market for chicken just here in the United States, but we know we have to replace that. And therefore, we hyper focus on those large scale institutional customers who are price sensitive because we can. Like
Yeah.
that was the point is
Yes.
that by automating and investing in automation, we can solve the quality problems that you see in inconsistent production of plant based meat, which happens whether or not you're paying a high price for it or not, by the way.
Right.
And then, second of all, to be able to sell to high volume customers ensures that when you're producing at 5,000 pounds an hour, which is what the Mach 2 can do, probably by the end of this year, that you have somebody who wants to buy 5,000 pounds. And luckily, schools sell a lot of chicken and they can replace it with plant based chicken if it's the right price and the right quality. And that's what we can deliver. What doesn't work so well for us in markets where, people are wanting to buy small bags,
Yes.
um, and that doesn't mean we couldn't get to that market eventually. It's
Mhm.
just it's not a good use of our time to be individually distributing, 5,000 or, 100,000 pounds a day into tiny little bags for Whole Foods per se,
Mhm.
when all of that sale could go to basically one school district in California.
Mhm.
Um,
Totally.
Now I'm sure there will be a time when we'll get,
There.
to retail at that scale and be able to offer those kind of margins for retail. But we believe it's in our best interest to replace meat on a large scale where there is meat on a large scale, which
Yeah.
is school districts, hospitals, universities, prisons, corporate cafeterias. And, pre pandemic, 52% of the meat industry was serving the food service industry. So it's
Mhm.
actually still the largest market where we actually need to replace meat. Consumers who are going to the grocery store have a few more options because there's lots
Yes.
of plant-based meat in the retail market. It's just not it's very pretty expensive. I do think
Yes.
it's very high quality, um, but it's just expensive.
Yes, right. And I love the way you talk about what I'm unpacking here too is your who your customer is, what they need, quality, volume, and a low price or a paired price with regular chicken
Mhm.
that comes from chickens. So I'm hearing your growth strategy though. I'm
Yeah.
hearing how you're thinking about how you're gonna grow. I'm gonna first focus on this and then focus on that. So maybe tell us a bit about how you think about growth.
Yeah. So where we think about growth is in a couple of ways. First of all, we target geographic areas where there are the large concentrations of school districts, hospitals, just population centers in general. And then we really believe in what we call relationship based sales. We have we have an amazing group of sales coordinators and sales professionals who really know our customers by name. They
Mhm.
know their family members. They know. they have personal relationships with these people because they know the importance of these sensitive markets on choosing, being able to trust the people that they're buying their food from. You know,
Mhm.
plant-based meat is a novel kind of a novel product to be said, even though we've been making plant-based meat for 2,000 years. And I'm not joking, we actually have. But, it is still a novel product for so many people, and so, therefore, you wanna be able to trust where your food comes from. You wanna know that it's being made by people who care, and you
Mhm.
wanna know that it's being distributed by people who care. So that's where we come up with this relationship-based, growth strategy, is that all of our brokers, all of our sales, professionals, they're moms, they're grandmas,
Uh,
our nutritionists, we even have one amazing broker who is 90-year-old grandma, and she works with her grandson on their brokerage firm. So we we really value the broker that is there with us and reflects the values not only of our company, but of the community that they're serving. And, you can't underestimate how important that is when it comes to systems change. People don't really make decisions because maybe they'll make decisions if they decide to be vegan and not eat meat. But, if they don't have all that ethos wrapped up in them quite yet, they're going to make decisions based on trusting the product and
yeah.
trusting the people. And so we aim to be the people behind our product. We're here talking with you, and we know our customers by name, and we celebrate them, each and every one of them, because we believe that we're not going to get systems change by just having a top line sales goal. It's not that we don't have that, but
Of course. Yeah.
that's not where the success comes from. Where the success comes from is having those relationships. And I really have to credit Christy Middleton, our vice president of business development, because she knew this vision from the beginning, and she has brought it to life, and she's instilled that in all of the people as part of her team. And she's taught me about that. It's not like engineers are notoriously great at people skills. But she knows, and she's taught me how important that is, and she's brought it to life in our success with school districts and hospitals. Um, Lauren, who is the resident nutritionist on our team, and the sales coordinator or a sales manager who serves our hospital customers, just signed a big contract with Vizient for 8,000 hospital locations for a buying group across the United States. But, she knows as a nutritionist that replacing meat is better for our health. And if we can do that on a large scale, it's better for everybody's health, and it's better for the hospitals that they're going to be, if they're going to serve chicken nuggets, serve plant based instead, because
Mhm.
that's the incremental step forward that you're not going to get by asking people to literally flip over their entire diet, which granted some people should do to protect their health. But if what you can get is a transfer from one product to another that's indistinguishable, then you're already a step forward, and that's why we believe it's so important to have those relationships.
I love that. And so the relationships and how you talk about the product, as you said, not just having it be about the top line, which of course is important, or the bottom line, which is also important. But you're weaving your message, your purpose, your
Yeah,
impact into your sales strategy. And it makes you feel differently about a company, about your decisions, about, oh, heck, I'll have that plant-based patty while I'm here in the hospital, right? Like, why not? Right?
yeah,
I
exactly.
think it changes your mindset, and it probably changes the mindset of whoever the buyers are, right? In the hospitals or the school districts.
Yeah, exactly. Because they know they're hospital administrators. They know we have to replace meat for our health.
Yeah.
And they also know that people are people, and most people have a really hard time changing their diet. This is a really easy way to meet people where they're at. And that's what, either school food directors or hospital administrators, they know that they're not going to necessarily, climb the entire mountain, but they can make a pretty big dent over the hills by replacing meat with plant-based products. and still at the same time encouraging those salads and, fruit and vegetables and things like that. But luckily, the great thing about plant-based meat is it also comes with your fiber and other things like that you don't get
Yeah,
from meat anyway.
that's right. It's more balanced, right?
Yeah.
It has
Actually, it really is. And, if you're gonna be eating processed meat anyway,
yeah.
it's so
Yeah,
important to replace it with a much healthier product. Nothing beats an apple or a carrot, um,
right.
but we know that we can greatly make things better and go a long way, in terms of health outcomes by simply replacing the meat level.
I just love it. So you've created an extraordinary manufacturing process and
Thank you.
tremendous innovation. Um, that doesn't sound like it's just chump change to get going. So, right? So it's tell us about how you have sort of sequenced and funded your business.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started this company shortly after I left the good. I was at the Good Food Institute after I was at Boeing, but only briefly. But basically after I left Boeing, I really had this idea that I wanted to start a plant based meat company to do what exactly I didn't know at the time, but slowly but surely it came into focus when I could see how much the plant based meat industry had a need for better manufacturing and.
Mm,
Um, the initial idea was that I would put some savings in the bank just in case it doesn't work, and I couldn't fund it myself because this is
massive.
large scale industrial manufacturing technology
Yeah.
and food processing technology, so there was literally no way I could just fund it. I think a lot of biotech can be done at a much smaller scale earlier on, but this less so.
Mhm,
Definitely
mhm.
wasn't going to be a bench scale thing for very long. And so I went out to venture capital for funding because I believe venture capital is a really, really good way to fund research and development based companies.
Mm.
I'm less certain about their ability to fund marketing based companies.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so talk to somebody else who knows about that.
No, no, I think that's really important. Not adventure is not for every company.
Exactly. Where we had to do was fundamental research and development first at the bench scale, then the prototype scale, maybe pre-prototype, whatever it is when we were just hacking things together. And then bring it up to higher and higher levels. None of that was going to be profitable for a while. Um, and ultimately, our first goal was to put it into operation to sell products.
Yeah.
So it was really, really important that we had venture capital to kind of charge the system in order to do that research and development. And that's why we were called Seattle Food Tech. And that's still our corporate name, was because we started as Seattle Food Tech, knowing the technology needed to be there in order to make plant based meat profitable and sustainable. And
Mhm.
then we added Rebellious Foods when we knew it was time to be a
A brand.
company that sold products.
Yes. Yes.
So there's kind of two halves of the company from that regard.
Yeah.
But slowly but surely, we raised, I think it was the first money I raised in 2017 was $1 million.
Mhm.
And then in
How
Y
far
Combinator, thank you.
how far did that get you?
Um, like actually probably got us through a couple of years, and years is hard to say because we raised another million in Y Combinator 9 months later.
Okay. Okay.
So that also made us pretty far. And then we raised another round, a small round after that. And then we raised in 2020. So that was like 2019. And then early 2020, we raised our Series A, which was about $6 million. So at the time, those were actually pretty small potatoes compared to what most people in the plant based meat and the cultivated meat and alternative protein space were raising. But I think it was also a testament to the fact that this was kind of a boring idea, honestly.
Mm, mhm.
Like, I mean, let's face it, manufacturing technology is barely something people's gonna look up on Wikipedia. It's just not that interesting to most people. And so I didn't find a whole lot of like super excitement around the idea of developing equipment. And they're like,
Right.
a lot of people just didn't even see the point. But the people who did knew what they were looking at. And
Yes.
that's where
Yes.
finding, maybe you have to go through 600 investor meetings, which is actually 700 is all my lifetime number at this point. 700 pitches
Wow.
over 6.5 years. But when you find the right people and they get what you're doing, and then they start to see results, then we could raise another round. We raised a Series B in 2023. We
Mhm.
raised some intermediate rounds between 2020 and 2023. But it did take a long time, especially because in the middle there, we had a pandemic. We had to spend a lot of money on things like masks and other things like that. Schools all shut down for 2 years in the middle there, so we lost our customers and we had to temporarily go into retail. We didn't know that
Pivot.
was gonna be temporary.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
hit by massive amounts of inflation. So, I mean, considering to date, just to be really clear, to date, we've raised $32 million. We
Wow.
maintain about half of it, mostly because we're near break even.
Good for
So,
you.
we expect to be profitable probably later, just in a matter of months here, but, we, uh, we're starting to actually gain ground in terms of instead of burning, cash, especially as our technology comes to fruition and that brings us higher margins. That really means that we've done what we said we were gonna do. But so 32 million, yeah, it feels like a really big number when I look back over it. At the same time, all around me, there's companies, unfortunately, and very sadly and very regrettably going under
Yeah.
that raised two, three, four, or five times that. But it's just, I think, a testament to kind of a targeted effort. We didn't try to do too much. We didn't do too little, that's for sure. Um, if anyway, I'd probably even target it even more if I had to do it over again and maybe
Right.
skip that whole pandemic thing. That sucked. But, but
I'm a healthcare entrepreneur, so I understand about the pandemic and how it sucked. Like,
yeah, it
going,
sucked.
sorry.
So,
I feel your
exactly.
pain.
So, what I'm talking about, it's like, I mean, it was just kind of weird. It just felt like when it came to like the pandemic, it just felt like you were flushing money down the toilet sometimes. But, it was just very frustrating, but at the same time, you had to keep moving on your milestones and getting to the next level. But that being said, now that we are, at or near break even
Mhm.
mm, and we'll start, kind of resourcing our, recapping our reserves, um, it is, we have a lot of options now
Yeah.
so that we
Yeah.
can go out and start to think, okay, what more technology can we bring to this? There is lots more, trust me, there's like endless ideas of things we could do.
Mhm.
And then, how can we make an even bigger impact? What school districts are not getting reached? What
Mhm.
what limitations are we seeing in the National School Lunch Program? How can we better serve prisons and hospitals? And
Mhm. Mhm.
where can we even adjust recipe to make it even better for customers? So there's a lot we're going to look at in the next year to keep going with the impact that we can make. And that's fundamentally how you replace that which is harming society with that which can mitigate harm in society is by making sure that the company is um, you know moving the money from that which is not helpful to society to that which is can be helpful to society.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I just so I'm curious to know, Christy. So, um, you're I love how targeted your business is. What do you see as your future? Like, what are the next big building blocks over the next 10 years? Like, what do you
Yeah.
see? What do you envision for
Yeah.
Rebellious
So,
Foods?
one of the saddest things that we're seeing in society right now, particularly in food production, is actually the rise and almost pandemic scare level of bird flu. Um, if you aren't following bird flu, it is actually a very terrifying prospect. We've long known that bird flu, as a general group of viruses, pardon me, of pathogens, I should say. I'm not a healthcare person like you, but of pathogens is very likely or to become pandemic. Now, whether that's just pandemic with animals or elsewhere, we're now seeing bird flu in people, sadly, on a small, very small scale, and we're seeing in dairy cows. And it's a terrifying thought. But whether we need to replace meat on the large scale because of bird flu in the near term
Mhm.
or climate change in the long term, we
Mhm.
need to be ready to transform our meat industry
Mhm.
and retain the infrastructure of that industry by
Mm.
converting meat processing facilities to plant-based meat production facilities. And that's actually what our Mach 2 production system can do. We can actually take out a small amount of equipment from a chicken processing line, put in the Mach 2 production system, and make it a plant-based meat processing line, thereby preserving the jobs, preserving the facility, preserving the meat industry by providing a path forward for a conversion to a plant-based future. And that's our dream. That's why we're prototyping the small ones, the big one, the middle one, and now the Mach 2 and soon to be the Mach 3. We're putting in the very first one so we can prove to the world that this is a way forward for meat production. And our goal isn't to, make this, we definitely want to make plant-based meat overall more profitable and therefore we can make more of it and more available for everyone and affordable for everyone. But ultimately, we wanna make meat processing a plant-based future, and to
Mm.
do that, meat processors are suffering a lot now.
Mhm.
They are suffering from bird flu, the risk of handling animals. They're
Oh, yeah.
suffering from, honestly, just the trauma of running a meat processing facility. A plant-based future that's profitable and gives operators the opportunity to make money with plant-based foods is a real path forward to actually meeting our all society goals for healthier people, healthier planet, and better
Mhm.
for animals, obviously.
Oh my goodness. I just, I love how you have taken all of these constraints,
Mhm.
right? All of these problems in society and these challenges and found a solution, right? And
Thank
figured
you.
out ways for things to move forward. I just find that to be um extraordinary. And
Thank you.
I'm just so grateful for you to be here
Thank you.
with us today. So I'm curious, what can we do as a community to support and serve you and Rebellious Foods? What do you guys need?
Yeah. Well, first of all, this morning we put up our job opportunity. We are growing and we're growing quickly, and we have announced a new position for vice president of operations. So,
Oh,
first of
wow.
all, if you got that executive level experience and you know food, give us a shout. It's on our website. Go to careers page there from rebellious.com, rebelloyous.com, and check that. We will have some other jobs in the future, so stay tuned. And we'd love to hear from you. The second is you can contact your school district or your
Yeah.
hospital and meet the food service director and say, what are we doing to ensure that there's a plant-based future for our food, for our meat on the menu? We don't have to necessarily make everybody vegan, but we can at least
Mm.
make sure that option is always there. And, in New York, they now do what's called default veg. In all the hospitals, the default is vegetarian. And we know we can do that for
Oh,
hospitals across the nation is by just simply replacing chicken patties, tenders, and nuggets. We can make it default veg. If you want the animal-based product, then sure, that's fine. But if we make everything default veg, I think there's a real opportunity there. So, connecting with your hospitals, your daycare providers, your schools, and saying, what are we doing? And, feel free to connect us directly with Rebellious. You can go to our website and find 4 schools at the top. And one of the wonderful people from our team, Alex, Christy,
mhm.
Lauren, Megan, and Jen, will reach out to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so just, we have a lot of people that might have contacts with school districts, hospitals, daycare providers, prisons, right? That's a really big population that needs to be served healthy foods. Universities, right? Anyone with a big cafeteria,
Yep.
right? All
Yep,
right.
yeah,
So
and we even do entertainment facilities and places like that. So, yeah, lots of great opportunities there.
that's wonderful. And where can people find your nuggets?
Well, so it's a tough thing because if you're not a 5th grader, you don't get them.
So you
Yeah,
so we have to get them into the schools and into the hospitals and into your cafeteria in your office or whatever,
yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly. So, because we don't really focus on retail that much, unless you're in the Pacific Northwest, you're not gonna find them at your local store. Um, but, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, you might find them still locally. But, yeah, the really our target market is those bigger markets. And, while it's not an on-demand kind of business, it is a large-scale impactful business, and that's what we're working towards. And maybe with enough requests, we'll get back into retail, but it might be a couple of years. So,
Well, you got to follow that. That's your growth strategy. You'll get there, right?
thank you.
And so, just in the last closing moments here, what are some final words of wisdom that you can offer founders?
Yeah. I'm just I think that basically I always want to share with people how many steps it took along the way and how much iteration took to
Okay.
actually get where we are. I think a lot of people feel like when I've looked back at, my experience meeting founders in their later stages, when I was in the early stage, I really thought they had that clear path forward. And without that clear path, they could never have, been so successful. But that's just not the case. It's not the way it works. And, an investor once said to me, superior execution over superior strategy. Superior execution over superior strategy. Basically, what that means is that fighting through it every day is really what it takes, where you can
Mm,
course correct almost hourly if you have to in
yes.
order to reach success. But if you somehow think it's going to magically show up or that investor is going to magically give, to commit $3 million, it doesn't quite work that way. It
No.
definitely takes that relationship building or engineering building or steps towards it. So I would say this is definitely one of those things that superior execution is exceeds superior strategy. So,
Mhm.
and let that superior strategy be be defined by all of those course corrections.
Mhm. I love that. And
Thanks.
it makes so much sense. I can imagine you've got a wonderful dashboard with lots of KPIs. And I bet, and I'm thinking, I didn't say this, but you raised a bunch of money in 23 when almost
Yes.
no one could raise money. So you were demonstrating on paper that you had clear thinking, clear execution, and clear strategy that was obviously coming from the numbers and data and the innovation that you were building. So what a wonderful treat, Christie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for being here, joining us on Women Get Funded. Thank you for illuminating the path to unlocking opportunities for growth and prosperity for women-led enterprises. The world is made better by women-led business. So let's all go make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Are you ready to take the next big step in planning, propelling, and funding the exponential growth in your high impact business? Welcome to the Force for Good Business Accelerator. The next step is the Force for Good Business Accelerator. At A Force for Good, we know that growth is a puzzle you can solve. You too can cross the chasm of scaling and funding at www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator. Designed for women founders and their teams, this virtual experience is your opportunity to immerse yourself in a transformative process that will create a flywheel effect for your entire company. First, you'll build and implement a growth plan. This plan will be designed to help you accelerate product market fit and fine-tune a go-to-market strategy that produces more prospects, more customers, more traction, more growth. Next, you will explore all the many options for funding your business, from angel investors to venture, to crowdfunding, grants to loans. We will help you explore every option available to ensure you always have the fuel to keep growing. Along the way, you will elevate as a transformative leader, discovering clarity, confidence, and wisdom with each step along the journey. We will guide you every step of the way, and with options for additional support available to help you grow more quickly. We help you believe in our mantra that growth is a puzzle you can solve. Learn more about the Force for Good Virtual Business Accelerator today at www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator. That's right, www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator.